Today's topic is a really good one. When I first got it, I was like, okay, how to create company culture. Love it. How am I going to talk on this for 45 minutes? And just like every single topic that we've ever done, and I know that you've seen this if you've ever been on a growth day before, every single topic is layered. It has to do with so many other things than just a company culture. So whether you have a company, whether you're a solopreneur, whether you have one employee, whether you're a part of a company, whether you don't necessarily think this topic is even for you, but you're tuning in, all of those are correct. And you can get something out of today, because how to create a company culture is much like how to create a relationship culture, a family culture, how you want to move forward in everything that you do. So I'm really, really excited to chat about this because, like I said, even if you don't have a company, we're going to even kind of relate this to your family. Because believe it or not, right now, you have a culture within your family. You have a culture within your family of how you grew up. You have a set of patterns. You have a way of doing things. And we're also going to talk about how we can kind of instill those not only in our company, but also in our personal life, in our family life. My sister-in-law has actually worked for a lot of different big companies that are known for their company culture. And she's also now doing a ton of HR and hiring and so many cool things that I pinged her a couple days ago. And I said, hey, help me. Tell me some of the things that you have found that are the most powerful for creating company cultures. So she's like, Lori, I just did an hour-long podcast on this. I'm going to send it to you. So I was like, yes, this is amazing. So we get so many cool inside tips on this training as well from my sister-in-law, Jackie Koch, who's freaking amazing. But let's talk about it. How to create company culture. And whenever I say the word company in here, they always say an expert can always find the value in anything that anyone's saying, even if you feel like it doesn't relate right away. So this is your job. You get to practice today being the expert and saying, that might not relate to me, but what could it relate to in my life? Okay, here we go. Culture. Culture refers to beliefs, customs, practices, behaviors, and values shared by a particular group of people. Now, even if you've never spent time intentionally creating a company culture or a family culture, you have a culture right now. So I want you to think about this. When you're thinking of the company that you work for or your family, let's just think of those two things. Even if you have never spent time intentionally saying, I'm going to write down my core values. I'm going to write down my beliefs. I'm going to write down how we do it. What are our behaviors? Even if you have never done that right now, I want you to just think, what is the company culture right now? And what are the core values of your family? How is everybody showing up? What would you say defines, right? What would you say defines your family? What would you say defines the company that you are working in right now or the company that you're running? Can you just think of some? So even if you haven't defined it yet, I want to know what right now, before creating something, before learning how to redo it, before learning how to redo a pattern, right? What is it right now? Put it in the chat box. I would love to hear what some of those are. Okay, coming up in the chat box is humor and joy, healthy boundaries. These are so good. We help transform lives. Our squad supports each other, encouragement and attention, integrity, teamwork, creative problem solving, honesty, kindness, and love. Okay, so I want you to think about all of these things that the people in the chat box are saying, because these things are a result of something. They are a result of a set of actions, most likely coming from the top down, because culture is passed down. Culture is learned. And so that's what I want you to remember is we get into a new area, we get into a new place, and it's passed down and it's learned. So even if you've never spent time intentionally creating it, people are learning it from how we show up in what we're doing. So if there's a result that you like, just like you're chatting in the chat box, how did you get that result? what actions were you doing, or how are people showing up in order to cultivate that result? Which also means if there's a result that you don't like that's going on in your company or in your family, it's because of an action or an inaction, a lack of action that is happening. So really it just takes some time and also questioning. But every time that I've looked at something within my company or within employees or anyone that works for me, I always say, how did they learn this from me? It was either something I wasn't saying or something I was saying. And oftentimes with my leadership style, it was something I wasn't saying because maybe I was more passive in the beginning. I was, in the beginning when I started having people work for me, I wanted them to like me. So I was a lot more passive. So they were learning things through what I wasn't saying and, not keeping people necessarily reinforcing it in an alignment. So culture is passed down. So at that event this weekend, one of my friends, Katrina Scott, was talking about branding. And I noticed how branding actually has a lot to do with culture. And she said, even if you don't have a personal brand, right? All of you on here, just think of anyone who maybe a lot of you have a personal brand. Maybe some of you don't have a personal brand. She said, even if you think that you don't, you do. She said, if you are a person who goes on to, you have a bad flight and you go onto social media and you tag an airline and you complain about them, that is your personal brand, that you're going to complain about someone. If you go on and you give bad reviews or you have negative comments and you're always sharing negative things, your personal brand is that you are negative. So think about this from a culture standpoint. We are constantly putting out what we are and what our culture is by our actions or by our lack thereof actions, right? Sometimes what we don't do and what we don't say speaks a lot louder than what we do say. So this was really, really interesting for me to hear, to say, okay, I think that I have like my core values for my, myself, my life and my brand, but this made me dig a lot deeper into culture and branding and say, okay, if we really want to be honest, it's the actions and how we're reinforcing them and how we're backing those up that are really going to create that culture. So something else that I want you to think about is that a culture change or culture integration, the beginning of it, is not an overnight thing. Just like habits. You know how we talk about so many personal habits on here and habit stacking and changing your habits and successful habits. Company culture is built the same way. It is very small things stacked on top of each other, and you're not going to be able to implement them all at once. So let's think about this. If you've already had your personal culture, right? Your company culture, your family culture, you're not going to turn the Titanic in a day. It is going to be a very slow turning of that ship in order for this to really get back into alignment with what you want. So first of all, I think the most important thing to do is set the expectation to know that if you're in a culture right now, a company culture that you're not loving, you cannot go have a meeting and say, this is what we're going to do from now on. Because number one, you as the leader won't be able to learn all the things and be able to reinforce them. It'll be too much at once. But to be able to stack those, paint the vision of where you're going, and then slowly one by one talk about how you are going to implement and integrate those.
This can be your day for personal growth. This can be that day you committed to and you remember and you go, that was the day I got myself a community. I got better coaches. I committed to making my life the absolute best that I could. This is that day. Make today your growth day. Click the button on this page and sign up right now.